4 o'clock here in New York, 11 p.m. in Israel and in Gaza, where we may be on the verge of a breakthrough in the unprecedented hostage situation on the ground there. Sources tell NBC News that a tentative deal has been reached for the release of some of the hostages held by Hamas. A spokesperson for the Israeli military cautioning in the last few hours that there is no final deal yet, but that there is, quote, some progress. The Israeli cabinet meeting to discuss the issue at this hour. Here are the terms as it stands right now. This is according to a senior U.S. official. 50 women and children would be traded for 150 Palestinian prisoners in Israeli custody. There would also be a pause in the fighting for 4 days to allow for more rounds of hostages exchanges and for more humanitarian aid to enter Gaza, up to 300 to 400 trucks per day. Overall, the deal adds up to what U.S. officials are calling the most significant diplomatic breakthrough since the war began. If it can hold, and that is a big if. Officials are stressing that the deal could fall apart at any moment. But for now, there is momentum in the push to release the more than 200 hostages that have been held captive by Hamas for 6 weeks, a number that includes people from 40 countries and 40 children, that is according to the Israeli government. They were taken from communities along Israel's border with Gaza that were stormed by Hamas on October 7th in an attack that killed more than 1,200 people. And since then, they have been held in a war zone. Israeli forces have pushed into Gaza, bombarded the territory with thousands of airstrikes, killing 14,000 people. That's according to the health ministry in Gaza, which is run by Hamas. And that is where we start this hour with Ruby Chen, father of 19-year-old Itai Chen, an American-Israeli citizen who is serving in Israel's army and is believed to be one of the hostages. And at the table for the hour, former top State Department official during the Obama administration, MSNBC political analyst Rick Stengel. But first, let's turn to NBC News correspondent Raf Sanchez in Tel Aviv, Israel. Raf, what is the latest?
Alicia, we are now 3 hours into this marathon cabinet meeting where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is urging his right-wing cabinet to vote to approve this deal. Speaking at the beginning of the cabinet meeting, he said this is a difficult decision, but it is the right decision. The deal he is asking them to approve is the one you laid out. 50 women and children, hostages released over 4 days in exchange for a 4-day ceasefire, the release of 150 Palestinian women and children being held in Israeli jails. An Israeli official also telling NBC News Israel has agreed to suspend drone flights overhead Gaza for a limited period each day while Hamas gathers these hostages. This Israeli official also saying there is the possibility that this initial deal could be extended. 1 day of extended ceasefire in exchange for 10 hostages. They say that that could continue indefinitely, but that Israel is skeptical and that they will watch closely whether or not Hamas delivers on this first tranche of hostages. Alicia, we also heard from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the start of this cabinet meeting saying that President Biden directly intervened in these negotiations and successfully improved the terms in Israel's favor. So more hostages coming out in return for lower costs paid by Israel. Alicia, just in terms of the timeline here, it is 11 p.m. here now. They are still in this cabinet meeting. We are expecting a vote sometime in the next couple of hours. Assuming the Israeli government approves this deal, there is then, under Israeli law, a 24-hour period in which victims of the Palestinians who were convicted and being held in Israeli prisons but are now slated for release can appeal to the Supreme Court of Israel and ask that their release be blocked. Now, so far in Israeli history, the Supreme Court has never blocked a high-stakes diplomatic deal like this, but the Israeli official says that 24-hour window exists. So the clock will start when and if Israel's cabinet approves this deal. It will extend 24 hours on, and it is only after that point that we will start to expect to see some of these hostages come out of Gaza, some of these Palestinian prisoners being released. And Alicia, I'll just close by saying our focus is on the hostages here, but for civilians inside of Gaza, this deal holds the promise of their first days of respite after 46 days of bombardment following the Hamas terrorist attack on October 7th. Alicia.
Raf, I know that you have spoken with the families of hostages. What are they saying?
So these are anxious hours. As far as we know, no Israeli family has been told it is going to be your loved one coming out as part of this deal. But obviously it is the families who are missing children or women who are the ones daring to hope right now that it might be their loved ones as part of this agreement. There are going to be, if this deal goes through, some unbelievably overjoyed, relieved people. But that's only 50 hostages, Alicia, out of a total of 240. There are 190 families who are going to have a longer wait, assuming this deal goes through. We spoke earlier to Shelly Shem Tov. She is the mother of a 21-year-old named Omer, who was kidnapped from that music festival in the early hours of October 7th. The last glimpse she had of her son, he was tied up in the back of a Hamas pickup truck being carried into Gaza. And she knows that a 21-year-old man is not going to be in the first list of hostages being released, may not be in the second, may not be in the third. Take a listen to a little bit of our conversation earlier.
I'm happy for the one who will get free, but I am sad for myself and for Omer. Because, as I said, I'm a mother, and all the mother needs is to protect her son. And no mother in all over the world needs to feel like I feel now.
And Alicia, I asked her a painful question, whether she is emotionally prepared for the possibility that her son could be in Gaza for years, because previous negotiations to release one Israeli soldier held by Hamas took years. Omer is not a soldier, but he's 21 years old. He's an Israeli citizen. He has no dual nationalities. I asked her, is she ready for that possibility? And she said, no, 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 no. He has to be released. Alicia.
A difficult question indeed, Ruby. I want your reaction to the news of a potential deal.
I think we have a new family, which is the family of the hostage families. And if one of our family members is about to be joyful, then we need to be joyful with him. And we should also thank President Biden and the administration, which I know has been working around the clock to broker this deal, to get us to a stage where a framework can be in place for additional deals to happen. We also are similar in the fact that Itai is 19 years old and most likely is not part of this deal. And we just need to continue to have hope that the international community will continue its efforts to bring all of the hostages back home alive, well, in a time frame that is not years.
Ruby, what more do you want us to know about Itai? Tell us about him.
So I'm a New Yorker, grew up on the streets of Flatbush. Itai lived here most of his life, even though going to the U.S. almost every summer, visiting family in Long Island, Boston, catching baseball games, watching basketball. He played professional basketball till the age of 18. Spunky kid. He needed to earn his minutes on the court. So he played spunky and always played against bigger kids, more physical kids, but he never backed down. I hope to think part of that DNA, hopefully also tough DNA of a New Yorker. Hopefully when he had his moment, he knew how to survive the Holocaust that he was in, to at least be at a stage now where he is being held captive after being abducted. But that, I think, is the most difficult thing to comprehend, which I don't think the word pain is a good description, not knowing if your son is alive or not for 46 days.
think most parents know just how incomprehensible that is. Rick, I want to pick up on something that Ruby referenced there, which was the president and the administration working to make sure that this deal in place also then provides a framework for future deals, focusing on the short term, the immediate. This is being debated right now, while also keeping an eye to making sure that the door is open for future negotiation.
Yes, Alicia, I just want to say how agonizing this is for Israeli families, agonizing for the Palestinian families, the Israeli woman who said no mother anywhere should have to go through what I am going through, and I'm sure we all agree with that.
David Rode, who himself has been in a hostage situation, said to me, when you are the hostage, you know what is happening. When you are the family, you are in the dark. You have a million questions about what is happening to your loved one.
Yes, and there's absolutely nothing guaranteed, not their release, not how long it will be. But to your question about the Biden administration, I think behind the scenes, the Biden administration has been working this tremendously. They have obviously some control over, not control, but some influence over the Israelis, where the, part of Biden's calculation was if I show unconditional support for the Israelis and Netanyahu, then they will listen to me when I ask them to do better, to be more careful. Also, Qatar has been involved in these negotiations. We have our largest military base in the Middle East in Doha. We are in frequent contact with them. Doha has been acting as a kind of middleman in these negotiations, and that has been something that seems to have been successful as well. But the caveat being, these kinds of things can break up and collapse at the 11th hour.
As the administration continues to remind us.
Yes. So, hope, trust but verify, keep your fingers crossed.